Michael Anthony here. And if you're not watching the Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White show, hang it up right now. Retire. Watch it.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now.
Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.
That's the way Sammy wanted it because it's all decorated inside to look like the Cabo Wabo Cantina.
Right.
You walk in there and, you're supposed to be transported to Cabo San Lucas. And it pretty much worked. But yeah, they were great.
Yeah, it gives you like the birthday bash kind of vibe, but in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like what we're trying to recreate there, except without the birthday.
Right. That's it.
Birthday is only actually the excuse for the bash. So.
Well, look, we didn't even do a proper intro, so welcome back to the show, Mr. Michael Anthony. There he is.
There he is.
There he is.
It's great to have you back. Last time around, man, our interview kind of went viral and everything. I mean, we don't want to be the gossip show or nothing, but we're going to talk about the music and the history and everything. But there's so much stuff going on with like the name Van Halen and everything. I mean, what are you going to be involved with any of that David Lee Roth, Alex Van Halen stuff? Like, have you read those stories that are in the press?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of weird because as soon as somebody says something, even if it's not necessarily going to happen, all of a sudden somebody grabs a hold of it and all of a sudden it's blown up. The only thing that was kind of a surprise to me was the Jason Newstead thing.
Right.
When he came out and said that Alex had talked to him, last year or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because I actually had been talking with on a conference call with Irving Azoff, Alex, and Dave last year. So I don't know what the Jason thing was all about, but and that's with Satriani and and I spoke to Joe about it, and it was more just of something to kicking around. Alex is still in kind of her mourning or whatever you want to say, about
in mourning,
about
I guess, yeah.
passing. And So I don't know if it was just nothing more than everyone talking, but I did have some talks with Dave and Alex last year, so I'm not really sure what the Jason Newstead thing came out of because we had been discussing this for well over a year.
Right. Yeah. Do you think maybe it was just like a ploy to get some press, or like, do you think?
I don't know. Does he have a new album coming out? Does this band have a new album coming out or something?
I think they had like some charity show that weekend. It's like, shit, how am I going to get some press to get plugged the show?
But anyway, as far as right now, everything's pretty quiet, and I hope something happens in the future here. And I think Joe was mentioning it in some of the interviews, that interview that he did, that it's more of like a celebration of the band and the music rather than calling it Van Halen, because obviously Eddie being probably the most integral part of the whole band, can't really call it Van Halen after that. And I know his son Wolfie, he's out doing his own thing now, and he doesn't even want, he went out and played with the band or whatever, but I think he's into his own music now, and I'm sure at some point he'll play some of the Van Halen stuff, but right now I think he's more focused on his thing.
Yeah. It's almost like he doesn't want anything to do with it. He's like distancing himself as much.
Because then all of a sudden you get pigeonholed into it, and
Yep.
And he doesn't want to be known as Eddie Van Halen's kid his whole life. He wants to go out there and make a name for himself, and which I totally understand, man, and I agree with.
Well, look, Julian Lennon didn't run around singing Beatles songs or John Lennon solo songs, and more power to him. I mean, you know, he got to be known for Velout and his own stuff. So more power to Wolfie for doing it the way he's doing it. I think that's the way he's supposed to do it. Be your own guy,
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got the tour with George Thorogood and also the hot sauces. Jeremy, kick it off. Which way do you want to go?
Well, let's talk about hot sauces because I'm super interested in this. So
me too.
I'm emailing back with your daughter and stuff, talking about like getting this interview set and everything. I'm cracking up at all the hot sauces because, man, Michael Anthony's hot sauce is like the number one celeb hot sauce I see online. It's always Mad Anthony Cafe.
I actually hired my daughter on, so to speak, some months back to she wanted to help me out, and the people that were helping me with product development and marketing weren't really up to what I wanted them to be doing. And my daughter's all, yeah, okay. So I hired her on. Now all of a sudden she's got me, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Hey, where are you going? Take a bottle of hot sauce with you.
Yeah.
Instagram it, this, that, whatever. And I'm like, sure. Okay. She's running me all over the place. But yeah, I initially came out with it in 2004, and it was more of just kind of like a novel thing because at that time, Joe Perry from Aerosmith had his Boneyard sauce that he had just come out with.
Yeah.
And but the one thing that I wanted to do was different than some of these guys was I didn't want to just slap my name on any old bottle of hot sauce and have a company make it for me and call it Michael Anthony's Ring of Fire or
Michael Anthony's Burning Hole sauce.
Yeah, exactly. So I had partnered up and actually met through there's a convention that's out here and it's in Anaheim every year called the NAMM convention, for the music merchandisers. And somebody came up to me and said, hey, this person from this hot sauce company are called Mike and Diane's Gourmet Kitchen. They are really excited because their hot sauce, well, you probably can't see it. I have a tattoo on my arm here it's going to be upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Mexican dude blowing flames out. This is the logo of this company's sauce. And when Van Halen was recording, we were shooting the video, one of the videos, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. They had a bottle of that saucer and I really liked it. I'm all, hey, can I have this? That'd make a great tat. And so I ended up doing this and they saw it that I had done this and became interested. And I wanted to be in on the ground level if I was going to develop a sauce, like I said, not just slap my name on it. So we became, we talked a lot and whatever. And they said, well, we can give you like a base to go with. And I don't know as far as, certain ingredients more, I'm more like, well, I want to taste a little more like this or, it's too sweet or whatever. And kind of developed it all on my own, which I'm kind of proud of because it's like my sauce,
Right. Yeah. It's the flavor of Michael Anthony. I mean,
yeah.
It's almost like working in the studio trying to write a song. It's like, okay, you need a little bit of this, you need a little bit of that. It's a creative kind of thing.
Rather band wise, it's rather than write something where that's popular or what's happening or whatever. You go your own way and do your own thing. And Van Halen, we always said that that we didn't write towards any kind of fads or whatever. If disco's happening, we didn't write anything that had that kind of a beat. We always wrote how we did. You got to please yourself first before you can please anybody else. That's what we had. That's what we always thought.
Right, and it's a good way to look at it.
The first time I interviewed you was in 2004 for the hot sauces.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, it was sort of to be in competition, or because Joe Perry was doing it, you decided to do it. Why did you decide to sort of keep doing it? And do you sort of every year rethink the recipes and rethink how you're going to market it and come up with different flavors? Or is it like, listen, we've got our 10 flavors, we'll leave it at that? How do you sort of see the business moving forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I came out with it, it really wasn't like, hey, Joe Perry's got a sauce, you got to come out with one. It was more of like everybody kind of hounding me about it. It's the same thing with the Jack Daniels base. Back then, I was slamming Jack Daniels and people would go, oh man, you ought to have a base bill that looks like a Jack Daniels bottle. Ha 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 ha. And so the first one, so I said, hey, why not? And my tech Doogie, who's still with me today, he's the one who kind of spearheaded it and said, yeah, let's do it. And it was more like a novel thing. And the hot sauce kind of started out like that too. Everybody kept saying, hey, God, you ought to make a hot sauce and this and that. And then when I met these people from the company and everything started kind of rolling, I thought, okay, this could be a fun thing to do, but I never had any intention of trying to grow it big, like Sammy's done with his Cabo Wabo or whatever. And it was more of just like a personal thing to have fun with. But I think as time went on, actually, back in 2004, when we came out with it, now, Mitch, I don't know if I told you about this or if it had happened already,
right?
But I submitted my sauces. It was my hot sauce and then my mustard, which we didn't even have a label for yet. We had just developed it. And there was it's like a Southwest hot sauce competition that they hold in the South.
Right.
And I actually came in first place with my mustard and like second place with my hot sauce. And I'm like, wow, this is, and there were all kinds of, sauces that were entered. All of a sudden I've got Chili Pepper Magazine. I got a couple other magazines that wanted to interview me about my sauces. And I was kind of like, yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. But now that I've actually got a little bit more time on my hands to kind of be involved more, because I didn't want to just run the thing, have people running it for me either.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to get a little bit more serious about it. But I don't want to, I didn't want to have like 20 different sauces or whatever. we're actually working on I guess I can say it, on a Bloody Mary mix right now.
Ooh.
But, I'd rather keep it, people go, how come you don't have like a chunky salsa and this and that? Well, first off, once you start doing that, then you got the FDA that you really got, because now you got vegetables and stuff like that you're really dealing with. And you got a whole nother, it's a pretty big process to
red tape
to get everything okayed and, to be able to put it out there. And so I like to keep it kind of simple. I do have, I got my sauce and I got 3 different heat levels, and then we do the mustard and the barbecue sauce. And that's, we got the idea for doing this Bloody Mary thing through a partnership that I have now with a company, a restaurant chain called Wild Wing Cafe, which is really popular in the South out here. And they got something like 40, 50 restaurants now, and they're growing it all the time. And they use my barbecue sauce and my mustard in a lot of their stuff. And so I kind of, and then we're going to start adding the Bloody Mary thing onto their menu, and we'll see what happens from there.
Do you see yourself opening up like a restaurant at some point, like the Mad Anthony Cafe with all your stuff?
Hey, believe me, after being partners back then with Hagar, when we opened up the Cabo Wabo, it's like, unless you're there 24/7 watching over the whole operation, everybody's doing this. They're picking from here. And
yeah, my mom, I'll tell you what, my mom, we had a restaurant too. And if she wasn't there, it was just like, when the cats are away, the mice will play sort of thing.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I remember having people ask us, or when we would have business meetings with lawyers or whatever, and they would just say, well, how much do you want to make? What's your goal here? And if you reach that goal, then don't worry what they're taking off what they're stealing off the top. You're making what you want to make. Right. But I know the restaurant business is really, really hard. And I have been approached by a few people to do stuff like that, but I don't have the time that I would want to dedicate to that.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly ask you about your relationship with Sammy Hagar. I mean, here you are, you're going to go on tour. You're going to have this tour with George Thorogood opening. When he comes in at the end of 84 or beginning of 85, were you already friends with him? Did you know him? Was he just the new guy and you eventually became friends? Or how did that sort of develop? Because he's been exceptionally loyal to you and you have been exceptionally loyal to him for... What's the math on this? 35, 40 years now, whatever it is?
A long time now. When he first came in, he actually, as a solo artist, played on a few shows that Van Halen had done.
Yep.
There were some outdoor shows that we did that he was like an opening act or whatever.
Yep.
And I never knew him though. I mean, I knew of him. I knew his music like, everybody does.
Right.
All the bands, know each other. I know Eddie had met him also, but I never actually met him until he walked into 5150 after him and Eddie jammed, and he decided to come and see what this Van Halen thing was all about. I don't even think Sammy had any intention of joining the band at that point. I think he just wanted to come to the studio and see if all the party and drugs and drinking rumors were true.
Which they were, I guess, at this point.
He was there for the Eddie autograph. That's what he was there for.
So my introduction to him was just as the new lead singer. But we became fast friends because let's put it this way. I owned 2 cars when he joined Van Halen. I had one and my wife had one. And by like the next year or whatever, I owned 10 cars. And,
wow.
And my wife hated me for that, and she owed it all to Sammy Hagar.
Well, in fact, let me ask you about that. I mean, you became a #1 selling artist after that. All your albums went to #1, and of course, there's this dichotomy about the Sammy years versus the Hagar, the Dave years. But was that positive for you to get on to Billboard and to get on to the MTV rotation and to be a #1 band? Did you feel you were selling out, or do you feel you were doing what the band always needed to be doing?
Nothing that Van Halen ever did was a conscious effort.
Right.
Like even from the beginning, Warner Brothers would say, hey, everyone would be going, what's the first single going to be and whatever. And we said, hey, you guys choose it. We love all the music. We made it. So you guys choose whatever you think. And we never wrote towards that way. Like, we need a #1 single or whatever, when Jump, which was our only big single from Van Halen, the early days of Van Halen. I mean, number one. Roth and didn't even want that song on the album because he's all, Eddie, you're a guitar god, man. You're not supposed to be playing keyboards. And Eddie just, he grew up classically trained on pianos, in addition to picking up guitar. So I think, when Sammy joined the band, I think it was just a natural progression of the band. We just continued writing, and Sammy brought in this whole knowledge of, being a guitar player himself. He understood structure of music and stuff like that. So from that standpoint, where Dave would always write the lyrics and go, yeah, that's, man, play that hard or whatever. Sammy's like, hey, you got this chord here. What if we play this chord or whatever, make this change? Brought a whole new element, and it just kind of changed the dynamic of the band. I mean, we were not going to continue doing, or we didn't want to continue doing what we were doing with Dave because, that was with Dave,
Right. Yeah.
So I think with Sam, it was just a natural, evolution, the way the band was evolving.
Was the band left alone? Sorry, I was just going to say, was the band left alone by the record companies? Because after you have the success of Jump, and then 5150 is a success, and then the next one, and the next one, does the record company come in and say, all right, start writing hits, or do they just say, it's Van Halen, just leave them alone, just don't touch?
It wasn't so much start writing hits as much as, just keep writing, put another one out, go on tour, write, tour, record, tour, and we were just, I don't know how many years we did that for us. Like, we would actually hit the road pretty much before the album even came out, and then we no sooner get back home and everybody would want a break. And they were like, well, when guys going back into the studio? It's like, but it wasn't until like the later albums where we really kind of took the reins. And, we work with producers, work with everybody, obviously from Ted Templeman to,
Mick Jones from
Mick
Foreigner.
Jones even, came in from Foreigner. And the reason we did that was because we just wanted to see how another producer looked at the band and how they would perceive the band and record us. And, nothing more than that. Nothing like, we got to bring Mick in so we can write some hits. It was never like that. It was always just because we wanted to try something new, just like Eddie always was doing with the guitars. I mean, I've seen him take some of the most priceless guitars that a guitar player would. I mean, he'd make a lot of these guitarists cry when they'd see some of the stuff he would do. What are you doing, Ed? I'm just seeing if I open the hole up for this pickup a little bit more, I can put this in here and whatever. I go, but that's a freaking Gibson ES335. It's worth blah, blah, blah. He goes,
I've got 4 of them.
But Van Halen, we were always like that. We were never succumb to trying to write hits or whatever. It's kind of like, hey, like I said, you got to please yourself before you please everybody else. And, we never had that, let's sell out and become. Now, the way it did kind of lean a little bit more, people thought we were a little bit more commercial sounding or a lot more or whatever, more commercial sounding than we were with Dave. It's a natural evolution of the band.
Right. And it seems like it was more of a collaborative effort with Sam, too, because it sounds like Dave would just go in and write lyrics, and Sam was like, maybe we could go with this chord. It seemed like a more musical marriage in a way with Sammy. Yeah,
it was. Plus, Sammy's range vocally, Eddie would say, God, I could write anything I want now, and he can sing it, which, when Sammy joined the band, it was. And unfortunately for me, I had to start singing higher, too, in the background. Dave, it was no problem at all.
You don't think about it 30 years later, like, okay, we're going to have to drop this a whole step at some point.
You know what? And that's one thing that a lot of singers don't think about when they're writing early on or whatever. They don't think about what's going to happen 25 years from now when people still want to hear that song. What do we do? And, it's just something that happens with every single rock band. I mean, if there are any exceptions, maybe 1 or 2, but everybody starts tuning down a whole step or whatever. It's no fun for the bass player, though. Let me tell you, it's like the strings are,
super slinky.
Yeah, and I don't really go for it. Yeah. But thank God I can still hit the high notes.
Worst case scenario, you break out the Pro Tools rig and you're good to go.
Good to. Sammy's not cheating on this tour. Don't say that.
No. And you know what? You brought that up though too. It's this latest album that The Circle that we recorded last September in Nashville with Dave Cobb. I don't know if you're familiar with
wow.
that.
Yes.
And I mean, last year I remember speaking with Slash, because he did Slash's
record,
latest
solo record
solo thing, and he was telling me, and we talked about Dave. Dave, he wanted to record this band, and he was a big Van Halen fan or whatever. And so when we went in the studio with him, it was like, oh my God, we were recording just like we did the early Van Halen days. We were out there in the studio with all our instruments. Sammy was in a vocal booth, obviously, to have that separation. And Dave Cobb was even in the studio with us. He played rhythm guitar on every track on this new album. But I think it's personally some of the best stuff instrumentally and vocally I've done since Van Halen.
Wow, now, Sammy said it was the best record he's ever done.
Yeah.
Which, I think 5150 wants to have a word with him. Of course,
every record's the best record you've ever done. You ever talk to anybody who's just putting out a record and going, well, I don't know, I don't think this one's quite as good as the last one, but we'll see what happens.
Best record I've ever done. I think For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge wants to have a talk with him.
There you go. But anyway, and the way we recorded it was even a bit different than we used to in the early days too. Dave Cobb likes to write in the studio, and he took a lot of the stuff from Sammy, but there's a lot of stuff that the Circle wrote as a band in the studio, and that's because I'd be playing a bass lick, or Vic would be playing something, and Dave would go, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's work on that." And all of a sudden, boom, we would have a song. And that's the way Dave likes to do it in the studio. And it was great because I've never really, even with Van Halen, we've always had pretty much of an idea for a song rather than just a lick. There were very few times where we just had a lick. Eddie would write a certain segment of the song. And it was great because Dave's out there in the studio with us. His engineer, Vance Powell, is in the control room, and Dave's going, okay, hey, get this, would work something out. And Dave would go, let's record it. Let's do it. And you don't have any time to work up the song or play it 100 times or whatever, which sometimes that's not so good, but other times it's great because you got a real spontaneity going there when you do it like that. And I think it really shows on this record.
Yeah.
Nice.
When does it come out?
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. When's it coming out?
We just recently, over the last couple of months, we have been doing a few sporadic shows here and there before we start the tour next month with Thorogood. Mm-hmm. And we shot 4 videos for 4 of the songs while we were out. And so something's going to be coming out real soon. We're going to give like some little tastes of the album before the full thing comes out.
All right.
But it's going to be, it'll be very soon. You'll be hearing something by this summer.
What kind of music can we expect of it? It's going to be like some Van Halen-y riffs. Is it what's the vibe?
There'll be some Van Halen-y riffs. There's other, I don't know. I don't want to say they're like ballads. They're not even power ballads, but it's just some of the stuff that we wrote is really different than anything that I've ever been involved with.
Right.
One thing that I know Sammy wanted to do, and one thing that Dave Cobb really liked, was having those Van Halen sounding background vocals.
Right.
Yes.
And this is the first time that I've ever gone in there, and I've multiple songs. I do all the background vocals myself, which is something that I've never done. So it kind of blew me away. I was kind of like really proud of what I did.
Well, you know what? Look.
Plus the fact that some of this stuff, none of the other guys can sing that high. So.
Well, that's it. And look, Mike, let's be honest here. You're one of the greatest vocalists of all time, whether it be background vocal or live. You hear you singing that Van Halen stuff, classic lead vocal. It's like, it sounds phenomenal. Your backing vocals are iconic. So
that's what happens when you grow up in a family with 5 kids and everyone's yelling at each other for the first 18 years of their life. You get those vocal cords.
Yeah. When you're in the studio, just real quick, everybody talks about Ed being the gear slut, guitars, amps, this and that. Were you ever big into the guitar, like the bass rigs and different amps, different all this? Because you've played all kinds of stuff through the years.
It was really interesting. Eddie's sound was so unique and so broad that, and then on the other hand, everybody, we wanted to have the big drum sound, whereas the bass, I was always trying to had to fit it in where it would work because Eddie's tonal range was so broad. Mm-hmm. It didn't give the bass a lot of room to breathe. Like, for instance, you got a band like Led Zeppelin where Jimmy Page's sound is a little more, not compressed sounding, but it's more confined. It's more confined, where John Paul Jones can play a big, bassy line, which would never work with Van Halen. So I really the main reason that I'd be trying a lot of amps and stuff like that was just to be trying different amps to fit in
The fit within.
I couldn't have that really big, huge bass sound because it would conflict with what Al was with the big drums and the big guitar sound. So sometimes it was a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine
doing an album. I think the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, when we recorded with Andy Johns, Andy he played bass also, but I think that was one of the first records where we could really open up the bass a bit, and Andy wanted to give it a pocket where it could really do its own thing and people would actually hear it.
Right. Yeah. And that was
yeah. And then playing like with the Circle, Chad Smith, and Joe Satriani, their sounds are different. So now the bass, I can all of a sudden, I mean, you're hearing it a lot bigger. And, I wish I could have done that in Van Halen, but I mean, back then it was the sound. That's what the sound was. And that's what it called for. And I didn't have the ego where I was going, oh no, the bass has got to be this, man, turn it up. I was just like,
listen, hey, you can't bemoan the Van Halen catalog. It's terrific. I mean, every era, and I love the Gary Cherone record. I might be one of the few, but I think it was great too. Let me just quickly ask you: when you did the Volume 1, the best of, somebody told me this story the other day that Can't Get This Stuff No More, Me Wise Magic were like pulling teeth because it took months and months to get the vocals from Dave. He wasn't. That's what I was told. What do you recall of that? Was it painful to get those 2 songs done, or was it in, out, old Van Halen, let's go? So there is a story.
I don't want to talk about anybody or whatever.
Okay.
It did take a bit longer. I mean, it even took Eddie longer, to do his guitar stuff because he was so particular in what he wanted. There would be days when I would come into the studio. I'd be there like 11 in the morning, and I'd leave at 7 o'clock at night and not have played one note.
Jeez.
Because Eddie was goofing with this and on this chord, and I can't, whatever. So, it was, in a way, it was a little bit more, not frustrating, but it was a lot more work. And Dave, what Eddie in particular wanted to pull out of Dave vocally was really high in his range, like you're saying, Me Wise Magic. I mean, if you listen to that, he's singing up high. And I remember in the chorus when I'm holding the note, me, Dave would be holding that note and would have the mattress on the floor behind Dave because by the time he finishes, he's like,
timber, yeah.
He was finished. But yeah, so in that sense, it did take long. It wasn't like pulling teeth, but it just took a while to get out of Dave what we were trying to
get.
To do.
Yeah.
Get the performance out.
On the other hand, then we'd let him during the verse. He go, he can back in his more comfortable Dave range.
More comfortable. Well, but listen, those 3 bonus tracks, whatever, the Human Beings and those 2 are iconic or classic Van Halen, must listen. So hey, it worked out in the end.
It worked out.
Yeah. And just getting back really quick when you're talking about, Gary Cherone being in the band, that you like that, there was some stuff that I don't even go into the recording process on that album because that album took us freaking everywhere. Alex Van Halen was going through a divorce at that time. And Ed played drums on some of this. I mean, it was the craziest thing that
wow, Ed played drums on some of it. Wow.
Yeah, that ever done. He played bass on some of it. There was some stuff that Ed, it's just, and our producer that was, I don't even like to talk about it. It was, there were only a couple songs on that whole album that we as a actual band played together in the studio when we were recording, which was, kind of sad because, it could have been a lot better. But going on that tour though was kind of like a breath of fresh air. And, no matter how Gary wanted to play the new Van Halen, the old Van Halen, all of it. And we were playing some of the earlier Van Halen stuff that we hadn't played in years.
Yeah, somebody get me a doctor. You were singing that.
You guys whipped out Mean Streets. Come on.
So that part of it was great. I had a lot of fun on that tour because we got to play a lot of that material we hadn't played in years.
Anyway.
Listen, that's about as far as I'm going to go on that.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is I was working about 50 minutes from home when that album came out, and I would listen to it on the way to work, and I would listen to it on the way home, and I listened to it for like 2 months straight. So I ended up, I love it because I sort of pounded it into my head for 2 months, twice a day.
It was to me the kind of album that, for the most part, I don't think you immediately go, "Oh, wow, that's whatever." You got to listen to it because there's a lot going on that record.
Yeah. But One I Want or Fire in the Hole or Without You,
Year to the Day. Geez, one of the greatest songs ever. Jeez.
Anyway, listen, I like it, but I guess I forced myself with those drives back and forth.
Fire in the Hole, come on, it was part of the soundtrack to what, Lethal Weapon 28 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was Lethal Weapon 4 or something like that.
Oh my God! Here, I'll wrap up for my end with this. You're doing that tour with George Thorogood, of course. I'm very familiar with George. Talk to me about that package, because most people will say, "Oh, Sammy's got to go out with Europe or Def Leppard or Bon Jovi or one of these." But this is such a great package. You're going to go hear one bourbon, one scotch, one beer, and then you're going to go hear
Cabo Wabo.
Now does George? Now I heard
Mas Tequila.
I heard rumors that George doesn't really drink anymore.
No.
You guys know anything about it? He doesn't drink?
No.
Well, that's good then, because this tour could really turn into a debacle quick.
Yeah, I know. Between the tequila and the bourbon, it's going to be one. But
hey, I'm telling you. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of different people we could go out with or take out on the road. And this was actually George was actually something that Sammy kind of spearheaded because he knows George, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a big party, but we're gonna get down to business, and you're gonna hear some good music. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, do you still have your white Yamaha bass from the Live Without a Net video?
I think so.
Yeah,
I've got probably about 300 basses sitting in my warehouse, and
you've kept them all.
I am kind of the equipment hound, though. I've got a lot of equipment that I used on the first Van Halen tour still.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of all the little analog effects because I've used a lot of them through the years.
Yeah.
Those rolling around solos and stuff. I've got old wah-wah pedals and fuzz tones and all that analog stuff, because when it jumped into the digital age, I like more of the uncontrolled sound that the analog stuff would bring to the mix, instead of the clean echo or whatever, But
so it's safe to say you're an analog guy.
Yeah. And that's the way Van Halen, right up until the last day, even when everybody was like you were saying, pro tooling and stuff like that, we had our couple of Studer tape machines at 5150, and that's how we recorded. We tried doing it the other way, the Pro Tools, but it's just for the Van Halen sound. We thought that we got our sound best by doing it recorded on tape.
You don't got no NASA Mutt Lang Fairlight system set up there.
No, hell no. And as much as it kind of got away from it a little bit, we always consider ourselves a band that if we couldn't reproduce it live by ourselves on stage, then why do it? Of course, with a couple of the keyboard songs. But when Sammy first joined the band, Sammy played guitar and Ed would play the keyboards on Why Can't This Be Love and stuff like that. And then, eventually we'd use a tape for that because Ed wanted to play guitar. But, as far as vocally and all that stuff, they try to sample my vocals live.
Yeah.
That sound guy's off the tour. I sing all my own stuff, and I always have live.
Right. Yeah. Hey, real quick, just talking about that, the first Van Halen tour. Of course, you guys were playing "There's Only One Way to Rock" and "I Can't Drive 55." A lot of fans online these days, they could have just played 2 extra Van Halen songs. Whose idea was it to?
Well, the 5150, the Sammy.
Okay.
Yeah, the first Sammy tour. The first Sammy tour. Yeah. Whose idea was it to play those 2 Sammy songs on tour? Was it Ed or?
It was a group effort because we wanted to do some Sammy songs, 1 or 2, and it just kind of worked out to where, hey, why don't we do this thing like One Way to Rock or whatever. Sammy would strap on the guitar too, and Ed and Sammy would, Eddie obviously is Eddie, and Sammy's no slouch on guitar either, but their styles are so way different. It made for kind of a really cool dynamic, a cool thing to do live, and so that's why we kind of stuck some of that stuff in there where Sammy could put on a guitar and play with Ed. just kind of, just gave kind of a new flavor to the live show.
Yeah, and it seemed like you guys were just having so much fun too. Those two songs are just
all the work's done in the studio. Once you hit the road, for me, it's like, come on.
It's like a horse getting let out of the barn.
This is what.
Poor Jeremy wasn't born at that time, but I got to experience these shows, and I can tell you, Jeremy, it was fantastic.
Oh man, we used to get tanked and watch Live Without a Net over and over again in high school.
Yeah, but I would go.
That's exactly why that album was called Live Without a Net, as opposed to Right Here, Right Now live. I can kind of let you in on this. Live Without a Net, we recorded. There were no overdubs. I mean, we took what we recorded. Of course, we have the sound truck out there mixing everything, but we didn't go in and fix up stuff or enhance anything. Where with Right Here, Right Now, unfortunately, it was kind of like, and this was kind of in part due to Eddie and Alex. They wanted everything to sound so good. It was kind of like, well, as long as we got a good drum track, we can fix this on the bass and fix that. Well, me growing up, old school, all the old, from the Who, Grand Funk, Zepp, all these bands that I used to listen to. I mean, one of my favorite albums of all time is still the early Grand Funk Live album. I was a big fan of Grand Funk Railroad. And if you listen to that album, you hear mistakes, you hear squeals, feedback, the Who, same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the shit that I want to hear live. It's like, okay, that's live. It's not like,
they're humans.
That sounds like an applause track that I hear there, It's like
Kiss Alive. You got audience one, then Over the Top, and then batshit crazy.
Exactly. I mean, we wanted to do it that way. But Live Without a Net, we wanted to do it that way. We wanted to keep it like raw, and this is the band. This is what you heard when you were at those shows,
And look, I mean, you watch that video and you listen to that audio, and like the band is firing on all cylinders. The mix is fantastic. I think it's probably the best sounding live Van Halen record there was. It
was a great time in the Van Halen, for the band, as it was with Dave when, even before, like after Fair Warning or whatever, and we go out and.
How come you guys never put out a live album with Dave before he left the band? Is there full shows recorded?
No, you know what? Eddie and Al, it's kind of funny because there are a lot of things, people would ask, how come we don't do that? How come we don't do this? And the very first thing that Alex would say would be, hey, would Led Zeppelin do that? Because that was one of his favorite bands. But I think the reason we never actually did was because at that point we were kind of thinking, that and a best of or whatever. It's kind of like when bands are at their peak and kind of like, want to sell some albums and not on the way down, but kind of like they've
plateaued.
Yeah, they plateaued. And, especially with like a best of record, because Sammy was always pushing for a best of record. We're like, no, we don't want to do a best of record. We don't, we don't want to have to rely on that. But that's why we never recorded with Dave. I'm sorry we didn't. I mean, we do have some recordings that I'm sure we could put stuff together. We played like in 82, was it 82? I think we played the Capitol Center in Maryland, and we played some of these shows where they would actually record the show. We've got a couple of great videos that we did 2 nights there. And I've got a whole duffel bag that people have given me of bootleg stuff that, back then, you wouldn't think twice of if you're on the sound crew of all of a sudden the sound guys, like, he's mixing the show and recording a little tape for himself on the side. A lot of that went on back then too.
Right.
So I know there's stuff floating out there. Whether anything else will come to light, I know I've heard a lot of bootleg live stuff with Dave. Some of it great sounding, a lot of it shitty.
Right.
Yeah, but Largo and Houston used to tape all the shows. That's why there's so many bootlegs from Largo and Houston.
Largo, in fact, that's one of my favorite. I think the second show I like better than the first, because they recorded them both, and then for whatever fee that the band could buy the videos. And I still have those videos from those shows, and it was a great time.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's a project to work on for a CD vinyl release. There you go.
Yeah. Well,
the ultimate box set.
The ultimate bootleg box set.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm down. Let's go. Let's do it.
MadAnthonyCafe.com. You can go check out the hot sauces. Of course, he's got really cool throwback nostalgia guitar pick packs up for grabs, which sell like instantly as soon as they go up online. I'm still trying to get one.
They're becoming pretty scarce. That's why I think the last one we did, we upped the price on it, only because I don't want, these are actual picks that were used and I had made back then. And, someone goes, well, why don't you just get your company to just make you up a bunch of those picks, like reproduction picks? I go, no, I don't want to do that, because then I'm just wanting to make money off selling picks. These picks that we were selling, they are actually picks that I had. Some of them I didn't necessarily use, but they were all made back in the day back then.
Yeah, so this is like a pick from 1982. It's not a reproduced.
We're searching for a few more. I mean, the last few batches that we came out with, my tech Doogie was going through a couple of old road cases in my warehouse, and goes, God, look what I found! And he found these Japanese. I didn't even know we made picks for Japan.
Wow.
And so we sent them out, and we're like, what is this? What does this say? Because that Japanese writing about, we're like, what is this stuff? But it was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool find, and I think there's a little bit more of it out there, I hope.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a little fun fact about it.
That's really cool though, because a lot of bands will do that. They'll reproduce, backstage passes and this and that. You're getting the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to do something like that, I would say this is a reproduction of this or whatever. But no, these picks that we sold are the real deal from back then.
Yeah, I can't remember which band it was, but they put out a box and they had like backstage passes in there, like reproduced versions like of the sticky workings. And like somebody posted, like, these are just like shitty, like 8.5 by 11, like, pieces of paper. Like they're not even like thick or like the cotton or anything.
Right.
Bands. Anyways. Well, look, let's wrap up. I mean, geez, you've said it all. Such a great time. Always chatting with you. It's always a blast.
So it's a lot of fun. We went. I'm looking at the way over. Now I'm late for walking my dogs.
Well, at least we don't have a publicist ringing the bell right now saying, "Wrap it up."
Yeah.
So look, it's gonna be a big year. The new Circle record.
We're gonna go out and have a lot of fun. It's. We're going to be out there touring, playing, and I can't wait for the album to come out for everybody to hear it.
Awesome. And, of course, this secret Van Halen tribute, tour, homage, whatever you guys are going to be calling it. I mean,
keep listening in, keep watching. You never know what rumor's going to spread next.
Right, that's it. And, of course, you're going to come on this show to make the announcement, so that's exciting.
Oh, well, yeah, little something for the for the call.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well,
look.
Look,
if something's going to happen, it'll.
Yeah. If it happens, it happens.
I hope it does. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But unfortunately, Eddie's gone, but the rest of us are still here. So,
Right. That's it.
It'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a great time and playing all the music.
And look, there's worse guitar players you could get. I mean, Joe Satriani is a freaking legend, and he's the guy to do it.
He's no slouch. I got a few guitar playing friends that are
on the short list.
Listen, I have every Chickenfoot album. I can tell you, Joe's good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We had Joe on the show we had Joe on the show about 2 months ago, and he had his Frankenstein guitar, and he was showing it off and everything. I'm like, oh, so that's why he was showing us the Frankenstein guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. See? Yeah, Joe's got a new album out too. Come on, Joe, what are you doing?
Yeah. The Elephants of Mars, available now. All right, Mike, this was fantastic. Thanks a lot. Always a pleasure, and hopefully we get to see you at a show.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Take care soon. Hopefully we'll come up your way at some point.
Yeah,
I would love to. We haven't seen Sammy in, what was the last time?
2019.
We'll do shots, and then I'll make you drink a couple.
Yep, I will break my sobriety to do a shot with you guys.
I'll make you do a couple shots, and I'll make you drink some of my hot sauce.
Yes,
I'll do that. I'll drink some hot sauce. I'm in.
Don't say that. Don't say
Cheers.
That. I did.
I'll do the hot sauce. I'm not afraid of hot sauce.
Some like Santo Mezquila and some Michael Anthony hot sauce.
It does taste good, though. It's not just hot. It tastes good.
Yeah. I love it.
Let's go.
All right.
Some on the chicken wings. Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Okay, take care.
See you later. Bye.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now.
Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.